Hello, it's a pleasure and honor to speak to you today. My name is Sreeja Natesan, and I'm APD at Duke University, and I'm excited to share with you our project entitled A Novel Tool for Assessing the Quality of Feedback in the Emergency Room, otherwise known as FeedER. So I have no financial disclosures to make. So let's jump right into it. So we know that constructive feedback is a powerful tool for impacting learning and clinical performance. In fact, it has been declared an essential component of residency training by the ACGME. In fact, the ACGME has even outlined the key components that are markers of high quality feedback. However, a feedback gap still exists. Despite over a decade of using competency-based milestone evaluations, EM residency programs are still facing inadequate feedback. There are currently no validated tools to assess the quality of feedback to help bridge this gap and help improve the feedback that's given in the emergency department. So there's two opposing sides. One side says, I never get feedback. You likely have heard this from your residents. The other side says, all I do is give feedback. You can guess who that comment comes from. Yes, these words echo through despite a multitude of publications, faculty development curriculum, and tools that exist. So my team set out to fill this gap. In our project, we aim to develop a feedback assessment tool to assess the quality of feedback in the emergency department. We sought to evaluate its psychometric properties and to understand the reliability and validity evidence of this assessment tool. Our overall goal of the study was to create two instruments, one for the faculty to self-reflect on the feedback that they give to residents, and the other for residents to use to globally assess the feedback that they actually receive within the emergency department. So the methods of our studies, this was a multi-center study that was conducted using a REDCap-based self-assessment survey of emergency medicine residents and faculty. We emailed the survey to participants at 5 academic centers in America and 1 in Thailand. So let's talk about our process. The first step was creation of the FeedER survey. So we identified 4 feedback domains based on the ACGME framework, based on what we found on their website. And you can look more into that based on this QR code if you're interested. So this consisted of timeliness, specificity, respect and communication, and action plan. Through our vigorous literature search, we actually found a 5th domain that we added, known as feedback culture. So using what we learned and the existing feedback tools, we developed questions that mirrored the domains that they were intended for. So this became our initial assessment tool, a 25-question survey with 5 questions from each of the feedback domains. So this led to our second step, which was the 2 Delphi rounds to ensure survey content quality. So we really wanted to ensure that we created questions that encompassed the components of quality feedback and that they reflected their respective domains. So this is why we sent the initial assessment tool to 17 content experts in medical education, feedback research, and emergency medicine through 2 Delphi rounds. So through this rigorous process, we were able to ensure respondent understanding of the item as intended, item coherence to the feedback domains, thematic saturation of the domain content, as well as time duration. So using this information, we further tailored our questions again, and I really wanted to share an example of FeedER after the 2 Delphi rounds. So we created 2 versions, a resident version and a faculty version, using a 5-point Likert scale. These 2 surveys actually mirrored each other in content. So an example would be, the resident version would read, feedback is given when I'm ready to receive it during my shift, while the faculty version would say, I give feedback when the resident is ready to receive it during their shift. Both of these would pertain to the domain of timeliness. So once we incorporated the changes, we entered our 3rd step, which was distributing the finalized survey via email. So we received IRB exemption and created the survey on REDCaps. We enrolled during March through October of 2019. So we sent a separate email to the faculty and residents of each of our enrollment sites linked to that finalized survey. So these are the 6 universities of my wonderful collaborators. We asked participants to take the survey only once. So this led to our final step, which was looking at the statistical metrics for psychometric validity as well as reliability. So I wanted to pause and talk about everyone's favorite topic, statistics. So we used the following statistical tools to evaluate our psychometric properties. So first was descriptive statistics of the frequency of responses. So basically how the question items use the Likert scale and did they use a wide array of responses. The second was we used confirmatory factor analysis to really test whether the measures of the constructs were consistent with what we, the researchers, understood the nature of that construct to be. After that, we looked at one-factor model as well as a five-factor model to see if we can get a unique feedback score, but also if those questions that we developed fell into those 5 domains that we actually hoped for. And then finally, we looked at reliability based on the Cronbach alpha's internal consistency measure. So we wanted a reliability measure greater than 0.6, and that would essentially suggest that our sets of questions were closely related as a group. So let's talk about results now. So we were able to enroll 147 EM faculty and 126 EM residents out of a total of 200 and 250 respectively. We analyzed the use of the Likert scale for each of the questions to see if a skew existed. So although in general there was a slightly positive skew, likely due to the emphasis of feedback in medical education, we did see that there was a wide array of responses used on the Likert scale. So from a practical standpoint, it was really important for us to be able to generate a unique feedback score. So by analyzing the use of our data based on the one-dimensional model, we actually found that this was possible. So if you got a feedback score that was good, there's no issue, that's awesome. However, if you got a feedback score that was low, the downside is that you would never know which area to work on if we only used the one-dimensional model. So this is why it was important for us to use a 5-dimensional model as well, so you would know which area was strong as well as weak. So our factor analysis models show that the questions tend to be structured into those 5 domains just like we hoped they would. This meant that the questions within each of those domains actually appropriately overlapped in their content. So this is great news because it really confirmed that statistically, our questions could be grouped in the 5 feedback domains that we intended. Additionally, all of the factor analysis models showed adequate fit indicators. Finally, let's talk about reliability. So we evaluated the domains for reliability. We wanted to know if people tend to respond to questions in the same way. An example would be on timeliness. If they answered one timeliness question positively, ideally all of the questions within that same domain should be answered similarly. So remember the Cronbach alpha was the measure of reliability, and we wanted it to be greater than 0.6. So for our study, we actually found that this was 0.92, so we were really happy about this. We also found that this was strong for all of the other 5 feedback domains, as you can see here on this figure. So, we all know that in feedback, there's really not one right way to give feedback. Instead, there's one way to do it, and then the other way, and then the other way, and then the other way. And if I asked for a show of hands, I bet that each of you has your own technique and the style of giving feedback. So really the lens that we look at giving feedback is often colored by the perception of the resident and the faculty. However, this feedback gap really exists, and it's due to a lack of a validated, reliable tool to assess for the quality of feedback within the emergency department. And this is where we envision using this tool. So there is this tug of war on feedback between the resident and the faculty. We created this novel tool to assess the quality of feedback within the emergency department. It's a tool that the faculty and residents can take to give you a sense of their effectiveness of giving feedback. This helps to bridge that gap of inadequate feedback by being a reproducible, valid, reliable, and objective measure for understanding the feedback, and it's tied to those 5 specific feedback domains. So limitations of our study include sampling bias as well as the need for replications. And so this really leads to our next steps. So we would like to conduct further studies for replication to further evaluate other types of psychometric properties, and then also to obtain a wider population sampling. Providing an individual score can help tailor guided opportunities for faculty to improve feedback. There's also this other potential use in which the domains of feedback can be looked at based on an emergency medicine program to see which areas you're strong or weak in. So this has a multitude of scholarship opportunities that we hope to grow on. So in conclusion, BDR is a novel tool that we're really excited to share with you. It's a tool that's reproducible, valid, reliable, and provides an objective measure for understanding the quality of feedback within the emergency room. Furthermore, it's a novel in its utilization of questions that can be actually mapped out to those 5 feedback domains. So our hope is that we can use FeedER on an individual level and systems level to really identify which domains of feedback you're strong or weak in so that targeted educational interventions can be used. So we look forward to sharing more about FeedER with you in the future. Thank you so much for your time.